So the World Trade Organization recently revised World Trade Statistics for 2022 and 2023 on the back of the effects of the pandemic, the ongoing Russia's war in Ukraine, rising debt and inflation, as well as higher interest rates. In the meantime, the new intra-Africa trade is revving up as the first transaction on the new payment system, or the PAPSS, was made about a week ago. Let's dig in for more on this with my guest, Leonard Ugbajah. He's the Executive Director at the Center for Trade and Business Development. He's a man whose heels are well in the world of trade. Good evening. Good to see you on the show. Thank you very much for coming.
Good evening, boss.
Good evening. Thank you so much. Let me start by asking what trends that you're seeing around the global trade as we're seeing rising inflation, rising interest rates across several economies around the world.
Well, yeah, like you've said it, rising inflation, likelihood of about 1/3 of global economies slipping into depression between now and 2023. What all this show you is the kind of pressure that is coming on trade. Then you see the disruption in global value chains caused first by COVID, and then now by the Ukraine-Russia conflict. So what you see is that countries are beginning to reassess where they source things from. If you look at, for example, and this even started from the time of Donald Trump, when he became very bullish about the Chinese trade relationship with the US. US companies started what you call reshoring, taking their production away from China and returning to the US, or the other one you call friendshoring, looking for more friendly countries to locate their production facilities. So this entire disruption has serious implications for countries like Nigeria, which basically boils down to how prepared we are to take advantage of the developments, and also to how prepared we are to ensure that we are not unduly impacted by the negative consequences of these trends.
Okay, so but what threats are you seeing for Nigeria in terms of foreign trade? Are we there? Are we beginning to scratch the surface?
Well, the threats for a country like Nigeria is twofold, because we're still heavily import dependent for local consumption, especially for very basic things. So looking at it from the import perspective, the trend is because the rising inflation means low purchasing value. So that is given. So that means we're not able to buy as much as we want to. We're not able to spend as much money as we want to. And when you add this to the fact that the import is also becoming more expensive because of our own foreign exchange problems, and then the disruption that is happening, for example, in food products, wheat, for example, was a major issue because of the Russia and Ukraine war. So from the import side, we are severely constrained by these developments, because we can't import what we need to, and we don't have enough money to import even the things that we can import. Now, from the export side of it, there could have been some advantage for Nigeria. For example, the Russian crisis with Ukraine opened an opportunity for Nigeria to export more oil. Alas, we couldn't take advantage of that opportunity because of the whole concept of crude theft and all that. So from the import side, we are also at a disadvantage. Unfortunately so, really, because moments of crisis like this are moments that should open up opportunities for countries that are prepared in one way or the other. Go and look at the other OPEC members. They are rolling in dollars as a result of the jump in oil prices, of course, which has begun to tank at the moment. But Nigeria has not been able to take advantage of either of these opportunities, either from the export side or from the import side. So we are just spectators.
Leonard, at the heart of this conversation is the key question about if we are making progress on our trade policy. Where is that document at the moment? Do you have any idea how much progress we're making? Because you can't really do foreign and international trade without a document at the center, at the heart of it all.
Well, yeah. So recently, a draft trade policy was submitted to the minister by the committee that was set up to develop the trade policy. And mind you that draft trade policy is coming almost 20 years after we developed our last trade policy. That was in 2002. Attempts that were made before now in the past administration weren't quite successful to get a trade policy. So right now, we have what we call a draft with the minister. We're expecting to have them expose that draft for stakeholders to critique. But you realize that beyond having a trade policy document, the whole concept of trade policy has to do with the measures you're taking, the initiatives you're taking, a collection, including what CBN does in terms of foreign exchange restriction for certain products, whether you're going to allow what you're allowing, what the custom does, what the Ministry of Finance does. So yes, even without a composite trade document, we've always done trade policy in terms of the sectors we support, the products we prohibit, even our border closure, sectoral policies like rice, sugar, wheat. They all have trade policy components. So the problem is not so much as having a document. The problem is the problem of orientation. What do we want to achieve with our trade policy? Maybe that's what we should be discussing. Are we targeting our trade policies properly to be able to improve productivity, to be able to produce the things that matter most, especially the things that we have the immediate capabilities to produce? In the long term, are we projecting for where the world is moving to so that we can begin to tool our policies, and our resources to being prepared? For where we are right now is because we were not prepared before now, But if we could start from today, in the new policy to set our targets right, to set our visions right, maybe, just maybe, we could come out of this season, more prosperous.
Well, let's talk about the AFCFTA in traffic and trade. Broadly speaking, are we beginning to scratch the surface? What's the latest? Notice there are a couple of activities in recent days and weeks from the AFCFTA Secretariat and all the way down to Kigali in Rwanda. What do we know? Well, for generally, continent-wide, the concept of guided trade under the AFCFTA, which has commenced. Ghana, Kenya have exchanged some products in the past 2 weeks. And then because about 6 countries have come together to already start trading while the other countries are trying to get ready. Unfortunately, Nigeria is not one of these 6 countries under the guided trade initiative of the AFCFTA. Coming back home, in terms of preparedness, I'm aware that the Action Committee, they are doing quite some work with the stakeholders, export preparedness and all that. But you must agree with me that whether we're able to take advantage of the AFCFTA or not, we still boil down to our policy, to our visioning. For example, the concept of servicification of trade, has taken over trade. So you're looking at what skills do we have? What capabilities do we have to be able to offer, in the production process? Because you don't, and that's the problem with our trade policy. We want to produce everything here. We want to do import substitution. We want to produce everything, but you don't need to produce everything here. You could start by building specific capabilities, and that's where your education and skills development comes into the game. So, for example, why can't Nigeria be the prime supplier of technical skills to the rest of Africa under the AFCFTA? We have the trade in services protocol under the AFCFTA, and it covers professional services. Why can't we begin to build capabilities? Even if you look at it in Nigeria today, you still see a lot of people coming from our neighboring countries to do some rather low skill or high skilled labor work in Nigeria here. So moving from our trade industrial policy, are we promoting productivity? If you don't promote productivity, you cannot trade, and at the moment, unfortunately, we don't have an environment that promotes productivity from education, from ease of doing business, and general macroeconomic and monetary policy. Our environment doesn't yet promote productivity in such a manner that we can become competitive with other parts of the world. And this needs critical visioning. It needs visionary leadership to move from just a consumption economy, as someone has said, to one that produces.
And that's at the bedrock of trade. You can't trade without productivity.
Yeah, so do you see any enabler? What else do you think we can do very quickly to ramp up and trade? Nobody's going to wait for us. If you look at the countries, Ghana, Rwanda, others,
yes.
Kenya are making progress quickly. Give me 1 minute or that or less. Leonard.
For us, I think I've said this for about 10 years now. We need to go back to our education system. That's the beginning of it. Because that's from where you begin to talk about issues of productivity, issues of innovation, so that you can begin to raise the kind of skills that you need to develop industry. Then from our education system, we need to then look at issues around the investment climate, the laws, the regulations, and the applications of those laws. For example, the issues relating to import-export procedure. If you're talking about global value chain, then you have to look at your import-export procedure. You have to look at issues that relate to how government agencies relate with businesses.
Yeah.
We have more of a predatory environment when it comes to government regulation than an enabling environment. Those are some of the quick wins we can begin to address.
All right, thank you so much. Leonard Ugbajah, Executive Director at the Center for Trade and Business Development. Thank you so much for your time, and do have a restful weekend.